Imagine you're sipping your morning coffee, scrolling through your phone, when suddenly, whoosh, your coffee floats out of the mug, your phone slips out of your hands, and you're lifting off your chair like an astronaut who forgot to wear his seatbelt. Congratulations! You're experiencing a world with no gravity. But don't panic, because in exactly 10 seconds, gravity is going to switch back on. The only problem? Your coffee, and pretty much everything else are now airborne. And when gravity makes its dramatic comeback, let's just say it's not going to be a soft landing. So, what would actually happen if Earth's gravity switched off for just 10 seconds? Would we all just harmlessly float around like in a cool sci-fi movie? Or would things get messy? Stick around, because we're about to break down one of the weirdest, most chaotic 10-second scenarios in scientific history. Alright, before we dive into the chaos, let's get one thing straight. Gravity is the ultimate stage manager of our planet. Keeps the oceans in place, holds down our atmosphere, and makes sure we don't drift off into space every time we jump. But what if, for just 10 seconds, it took a little break? Now, we're not talking about reducing gravity or suddenly making Earth's mass disappear. This isn't a bad sci-fi plot twist. We're talking about flipping the gravity switch to off, as if someone hit the mute button on one of the fundamental forces of nature. Everything that isn't glued, nailed, or otherwise attached to the ground would immediately become weightless. That includes people, cars, water, air. Basically everything that makes Earth, well, Earth-like. Let's start with the fun part. Floating. The moment gravity shuts off, everything and everyone that isn't firmly attached to the ground will start drifting upward. Not because space is pulling us in, but because there's nothing holding us down anymore. If you're indoors, you'd probably bounce off the ceiling like a very confused astronaut in zero-G training. If you were outside, depending on how much force you were applying to the ground, walking, running, or jumping, you'd be lifting off like a very unprepared superhero. People sitting still might only float up a little, while athletes mid-jump might find themselves drifting several feet into the air. But let's not forget about water. Earth's oceans, lakes, and rivers are all held in place by gravity. The second it turns off, water bodies stop behaving like water bodies. Huge portions of the ocean would begin lifting away from their basins, floating into the air in giant, weightless blobs. If you were at the beach, you'd watch in horror as water suddenly separated itself from the shoreline like an alien invasion. Rainwater, puddles, and even the water in your glass would follow suit. And then there's the atmosphere. Yes, air is held down by gravity too. The moment gravity shuts off, air molecules would start drifting away from the surface, expanding outward into space like a giant, invisible cloud. But don't panic yet. You wouldn't immediately suffocate. The air wouldn't just vanish in 10 seconds. It would just start getting very thin very quickly. But if this lasted any longer, we'd have a serious problem. Alright, let's say you've enjoyed your brief, unexpected zero-G experience. Maybe you did a few flips, watched your coffee turn into floating spheres, or just screamed in existential confusion. But then bam, gravity snaps back on. And this is where things get dangerous. Everything that floated upward is now coming back down. And not gently. You see, without gravity, objects don't just stop moving, they keep going until something stops them. So when gravity returns, everything that floated away is now falling. Hard. If you were mid-air when gravity switched back on, you'd come crashing down at full speed. A person who floated up just 5 feet would land with the force of jumping from a 5-foot ledge. Not great, but survivable. But someone who drifted 10, 20, or even 30 feet, that's a much rougher landing. And the people who were unlucky enough to be in planes? Let's just say the turbulence would be next level. And then there's the water. All those blobs of floating ocean, they're now free-falling back into their basins. Tsunamis, massive waves, and chaotic splashdowns would occur all over the world. Coastal cities would be absolutely drenched. And don't even get me started on the people who were casually swimming when this happened. Imagine being lifted out of the water, flailing around in zero-G, only to be slammed back down into the ocean like an unlucky video game character. And let's not forget the atmosphere. The air that began drifting upward would now be rushing back down at incredible speeds. Winds would be chaotic, with sudden bursts of high-speed gusts sweeping across cities. It'd be like a worldwide weather tantrum, as the atmosphere desperately tried to settle back into place. The good news? Gravity coming back means things will eventually stabilize. The bad news? The 10-second break left behind absolute chaos. Buildings might be damaged from unexpected impacts, water systems would be a mess, and anyone who was midair at the wrong moment would have a very, very bad day. Airports? Nightmare scenario. Any plane that was in the process of taking off or landing would be in serious trouble. And let's not even think about people in space. Astronauts on the International Space Station wouldn't be affected much, but satellites, which rely on precise gravitational forces, could be thrown slightly off course. That's a problem NASA would not be happy about. But hey, on the bright side, we'd have some amazing viral videos. Imagine security footage of people floating away from their desks, only to crash back down a few seconds later. The memes alone would be legendary. This ridiculous scenario highlights just how much we take gravity for granted. It's the silent, invisible force that keeps our entire planet in balance. Without it, things go from normal to apocalyptic very quickly. And while a 10-second gravity outage wouldn't destroy the planet, it would absolutely cause some of the weirdest, most chaotic moments in human history. So the next time you jump, trip, or struggle to pick up something heavy, just remember, gravity may be annoying sometimes, but trust me, you want it to stick around. And that's a wrap on today's mind-bending hypothetical. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a world without gravity, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more crazy, science-fueled thought experiments. Got another wild what-if scenario you want us to explore? Drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.